On this week's show, discussing where are we and why aren't we further? With Steve Jones from Dodge Construction Network. In this week's news, modular factory, cage fighting, quantum computing, and more. All right, we're back. Jacob, I feel like I'm having Groundhog's Day. Didn't I see you recently?
Yeah, I think we did this about 24 hours ago exactly. But when this comes out, you guys will be listening 1 week ahead. So time does not matter.
Yes, time is a standstill. It is only a construct in the podcasting world, right? But I have my usual sweatshirt on. Jacob likes to mix it up, so he's got a little mix up going on. But if you guys are checking out YouTube, you'll see his brand new microphone, and y'all should give Jacob a little go. I like that red cover on it, bro.
I know, right? It's what I call a Via Technic red. So it's really nice. I like it. But, you know, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and smash that subscribe button for us, too. Go ahead and get that in there.
Well, we have an awesome guest with us. Jacob brought a good guest with us today, Steve Jones. Steve, how you doing this morning, man?
Awesome.
Where are you coming at us from?
The heart of the beast, Manhattan, New York, New York.
Right in the heart of it all, right? Where the city just breathes, man.
You got it. I moved here right at the thick of COVID, and it was quiet. And I thought, what's all this traffic everybody's always talking about? There's no traffic here. And then every day there's a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And now it takes you 5 hours to go 2 blocks. You know?
Yeah, man. That's why that city needs all those electric bikes and everything they've got around that you can rent and move around on these days.
It's totally cool. Yeah.
I like that. I was there recently, and I was amazed that all of the delivery has moved to those e-bikes.
They sure have, baby.
It's scary, but also crazy if you're using it. I've used it, and I'm like, they're just here. But if you're driving, I'm like, you guys are nuts.
Yeah, or even walking. Yeah.
It
can be a little risky. I mean, you have this whole new third dimension of activity you got to really be paying attention to. Not just pedestrians and cars, but now the two-wheeled critters are flying everywhere.
Yeah, one thing more that New York needed, right?
Yeah, and if you see somebody pedaling a bike, you go, "Oh, you poor thing."
Why are you doing that? Oh, you're just and then you look and you're like, oh, it's got one of those slim batteries. You're just making it look like it. Yeah, you're just feeling it so that people think you're exercising.
Right. I had gym equipment for that. I don't need to do it on an actual bicycle.
Oh man, y'all can tell this is going to be a whole lot of fun. Before we get into the episode, though, we need to pause for the cause.
It's important everyone supports a culture of well-being in the field and is equipped with the tools to help prevent suicide in construction. Procore Safety Qualified courses were built in partnership with our customers, elevating enhancements to their standard OSHA training. And the Bringing the Right Mindset series equips individuals and leaders alike with the skills necessary to really build resilient teams. We've made these 3 courses available for free and on demand, and they're offered both in English as well as Spanish, and they are CEU certifiable. Procore.com/certified-qualified is where we host our Procore's Learning Portal, and anyone can use their Procore credentials or create a free account to get started.
Hey, you guys heard Jacob say it. We're back on YouTube. YouTube.com/@the ConTech crew. If you want to check out our microphones, check out our setups, do whatever you want to do, smash that subscribe button. Oh, by the way, there's little shorts coming out too that are really cool snippets of our fantastic guests. So drop us a line and subscribe. At the ConTech crew, we focus on technology that solves industry problems, and we've always believed in our sponsors. So much so that I went to work for one of them. So today, I want to talk to you about Join. Every construction project is a unique prototype, and it's actually shaped by thousands of decisions that impact the owner's business case, design, and the budget. Today, the communication driving these decisions is disjointed across all the stakeholders. Work happens in email, Excel, estimating, resulting in delays, waiting for decisions, waiting for access to information, and sometimes that information is outdated and incomplete. Managing the expectations of the team and keeping the project moving forward is a constant challenge, and a lot of times drives skepticism amongst the contributors. Join empowers general contractors to build with confidence and maximize the potential of every project by connecting these owners through new workflows that fit into your existing processes. We bring design teams and trade partners into a single platform. There's transparency and collaboration in the decision-making, which builds trusts and sets projects up for success. You might be asking yourself, do you need another tool? Well, let me tell you, Join fits in seamlessly with your processes and your other tools. In fact, we're here to help those other tools. Regardless of your estimating system or your project management process, Join will be a valuable added resource without disrupting those other systems and your teams. Check out Join, the collaborative project delivery platform for the built environment. Learn more at join.build. And we're back. All right. So, Steve Jones, we know you live in Manhattan. We know you've watched the COVID curve go up from very quiet to back to the city that never sleeps. You've kind of watched that in construction. So, tell us a little how your construction journey and technology meets up with your Manhattan journey.
Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. Yeah, I got into AEC as an architect many, many years ago, we'll just say. All right, we don't need to do the math on that. But I did that for 20 years. And, I began when I was drafting, right? Using HB lead on Mylar, standing in front of the stinky print machine, the whole bit, right? I thought when CAD came out, it was the greatest thing ever. Are you kidding me? I can now make these changes on this computer thing and they're just made, and I don't have to redraw anything. I can push a button and this machine over there starts with colored pens making drawings perfectly, and I can have as many of them as I want. I love this stuff. And my firm was a big Bentley shop in the day, and we were one of the first ones they came to when they acquired Tririga out of the UK with this thing that wasn't even called BIM at the time. It was called Object-Oriented Design, because that was what they called it in manufacturing, right? Mm-hmm. Still do, right? And they said, would you, we'll give you the software. Would you do a project with it? Because we just want to get people started to use it. And we did a 90,000 square foot building, headquarters for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Authority, still right there in Harrisburg. You drive by it. We did that with BIM. It was painful for us because we had to create all our own content. But we began to get what could be represented if it was being used by more people, and more people would be engaged, more manufacturers got engaged, right, and started building content, all that kind of stuff. So we became very early evangelists for BIM. I had the opportunity to take a jump over into tech at the end of the 90s, and I went with Primavera, and that was right at the time when they wanted to move from being pure desktop into the cloud. And so we developed a cloud-based document management application for them. And again, I was out there evangelizing not only digital processes of design moving into construction, but also now digital processes of project controls and project management and team collaboration and all of that. I kept bumping into an old buddy of mine who was another recovering architect named Norbert Young, who had moved from architecture to real estate development and then was running McGraw-Hill Construction's division that had Suites and Dodge and ENR and Arc Record and all that, McGraw-Hill Construction. And he asked me to come start a research group. He said, this is the biggest industry on the planet Earth, but hardly anybody knows what's going on outside their front yard. I want you to lead a team to go out and begin to do some research so that we can actually find out what works, what doesn't work, what are the best practices people should be doing, what are the pitfalls they should be avoiding, right? Let's make everybody smarter faster. Because right now, you've seen it in your work. Everybody goes one at a time, one project at a time, one champion at a time. It's this slow, slogging way to move the industry forward. And we're so far behind every other big capital-intensive industry out there. I mean, it's been decades since Boeing built a physical prototype of an airplane. You can walk up and go bonk, bonk, bonk on it. Yeah, come on. All that stuff's totally virtualized. They got the whole supply chain virtualized, And so, his mantra was connecting people, products, and projects. And he wanted it to really drive digital into the industry. And I said, dude, this sounds like a lot of fun. So I jumped in there 20 years ago. And we've been doing these research studies since then that do deep dives into really every aspect of the industry all over the world. What's going on with safety, what's going on with sustainability, what's going on with project delivery methods, and then every kind of tech under the sun. But the theme is always the same. what works.
Yep.
And what, and not just a yay, flag waving, rah, rah, but an actual look at what you got to be aware of that could not work, right? What's hard about this? If it was easy, everybody'd do it, right? There are things that are difficult. There's things you're going to have to change that you aren't prepared to have to change to make it successful. But what are they? Don't waste time over there or over there. Look at these things. And then there's always a curve. There's always a maturity curve for everything out there. There's people who are still at I couldn't even spell that if I had to the people who are deep into it and everything in between. And so we try and set those things up early in these research reports we do so that whoever's reading it can find themselves. I look at that like that. All right, what are those people doing? What's my next 3 or 4 steps? And what's easy about it? What's hard about it? What else do I have? What other factors should I wrap myself with in order to make that as successful as possible? What do I have to give up doing, right, in order to be successful at it? To try and give people a roadmap, no matter where they are in their journey. And again, this is for sustainability. This is for safety management. This is for tech. This is for project delivery. This is for internal organization of how you run your own VDC departments. It's just every kind of thing we can focus on that we think people need to learn how to do better, because it's not like everybody gets together at happy hour in the whole construction industry at the end of the day just shares war stories. We're so fragmented. You know?
No, yeah,
it's
we
crazy.
sit in our little huddles, right? We sit in our own little huddles, and maybe some of us do that, but it's our own little echo chambers. I want to so everybody listening, you guys will obviously know now, Steve's one of the guys behind a ton of the different things that we've covered here over the years. I mean, in 7 years of doing this, you guys were the place we went to in the beginning to benchmark and understand and start going, okay, we see some of the same problems they're talking about. I want to take you back to those early days when you got involved and you kind of said, wow, this is this huge industry and we know nothing about it, right? We only know what's on our front doorstep. Right. What are some of the earliest aha moments or maybe surprises that still stick with you that maybe we've overcome and maybe we still got room to go?
You know, what's interesting, that something I learned my first 6 months in architecture has rung true every day for the rest of my career until I'm here. I was working on a project, designing a project. I kind of got stuck on what to do in a certain situation. And I asked my project manager, who I considered to be this grizzled old veteran, you know, she might have been 40 or something, you know? And I said, you know, I don't know what to do. I said, you know, they hired us because we're supposed to know what to do. And yeah, but I can't figure this out. And she looked at me and she said a very simple sentence, which has never left me. She says, this is a people business. Pick up the phone, call the client, ask them what you should do. And I went, yeah, but they hired us because they think that we're the ones that, you know, because what you're taught, of course, is that, you know, we have all the answers, right? And it was antithetic to get on the phone and ask for some input from a client. So I picked up the phone, called the client. I was ready for a career-ending experience. And the client could not have been more thrilled that I called. Explained to me which option he felt was right, why he felt it was right, explained to me what his actual client drivers were. And that was a revelation because, you know, you tend to think that client guy is the end of the chain. Oh, no, man. That client guy had a senior vice president up here with all kind of things going on. That was the person that he had to please, and he was simply working with us to get there, right? I learned so much in that half an hour phone call. I learned the context in which he's operating and was able to then engage with him much more freely after that. But he was so thankful that I did that. He said, call me anytime. And I realized that as I study every kind of innovation in the industry, that the constant truth is that we are risk averse. Right? That's why the saber-toothed tigers didn't eat us. That's why we're still here. Okay?
Yes, right? Yeah.
Is that we're pretty good at risk aversion, right? And it applies to anything new here because the buildings are still getting built. You know, look out your window. It's not as if we can't build buildings. Could they be done better? Yeah, probably. But, you know, they're still getting built, right? And so in order for me to do something new, I really have to trust that not just some vendor told me something, but all my peers say this. That's what our research does, right? It basically collects, it does giant crowdsourcing on how it is you should go about doing something, right? Because everybody wants to be first, to be third. Right? You try it, you screw the whole thing up, driving into a wall. Jacob, you get involved, save it. Call me, baby. I'm all in, but I didn't want to be that first player. Right? And so once, I get a call from some tech company every week, because they see who I am and they think Dodge can help make them famous. And they've got some whiz bang, cool, nifty thing they dreamed up. I'm sure you get the same kind of calls. And I ask them 2 questions. I say, can you succinctly explain to me how this de-risks the process? And if I hear a long pause, I go, call me later when you figure that out. And, oftentimes they're for contractors because that's the hot market of the moment, right? Everybody has got to save the world for the contractor. And so they'll go through their little blurb and I'll say, okay, sport, it's 8:00 on a Wednesday morning on a rainy job site someplace. You walk up to the superintendent and you show him this. Is that superintendent going to go, you have saved my life? Thank you. Or is the superintendent going to boot you in the butt to get you out of the way because the damn delivery's got to show up that's 15 minutes late that's giving him agita, right? Mm-hmm. Until you've got that acceptance level and that immediate I get it from a superintendent at 8:00 on a Wednesday morning, you've got technology in search of a solution, right? Because it's pretty easy to build tech that's like, but what is it? Why? Right? There's a lot of what and not enough why. And all that's excess money that has flowed into the industry by people who, are sitting in a conference room somewhere with a bunch of money to invest. And they go, well, that industry's a wreck. Yeah, let's throw a bunch of money over there. Some of them valuations have gone through the roof recently. Let's get in on some of that, Eddie. Oh, yeah, okay. Throw some money at that. It reminds me of the old original .com days, right? When, the VCs were just standing on the side of the road at Sand Hill Road in California with buckets of money for anybody who could, if you could spell .com, you could get $10 million and run out and do something, It's not quite that bad, but there is a lot of dumb money being thrown at things which are either redundant, sound cool in a conference room, but don't really solve tangible, immediate problems or are too far ahead, right? Because as with everything, there's that curve. And you've got the Mortensons and the DPRs and the people who are out there who will try anything if it has a remote chance of being good and they know how to implement.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing in our studies that we find is one of the top obstacles to successful use of tech is that there is skill to implementing. You do have to know how to implement. It's not just, hey, I bought the license. Yay! My hair is going to grow back. My kids will love me again. Yay! Life is grand.
Hey, wait a minute.
Jacob, you didn't get the hair back.
Actually roll this out. I mean, I have to pilot it. I have to have metrics to know what it is I'm trying to fix and see whether I really fixed it. I really should take advantage of some best practices that other people have done. So it's not easy, right? It takes some commitment, some investment, and some skill. And those companies who have dedicated resources, right, that always proves to be one of the top factors for success. Yes, we have dedicated resources. Another one is I listen to consultants, right? Not just vendors, right? That's another thing that ends up being successful. But there's certain success factors that I see that are consistent through that kind of just help us moderate the basic human behavior that we're dealing with because we're human beings trying to build these buildings and these roads and these bridges and these tunnels and everything we're trying to build. It's just people doing it. And we bring all that people baggage into it, right? Someday in the far future, when it's all automation robots doing it all, then it's a whole nother story, but we ain't there, man. Nor in any of our working lifetimes, I think will we really practically be there. It's still going to be people. And
we'll see more. We'll see more of less people with fabrication and some of the things we were talking on pre-call with, panelized enclosures. And so it's less, right? But it's still people, right? It's still
100%.
It's still. So Jacob, I know you had a few questions there.
It's interesting how you've kind of framed it, especially with, the super on the site and everything. Dodge data reports have been basically my justification for the past 10 years of my career is literally like, hey, I'm knocking on people's doors. I'm trying to tell them this is a great idea. You should be doing it. But you're right. You can't just trust from a vendor saying, I can make your life easier. What's been great though is all of a sudden there's data. I'm being able to go download a report. I can put it in front of them. I can use it as a sales task. I mean, there's just so many different things that it works. But you're right. It's the aha moment. Does this solution, when you hand it over to a super and they go, I don't want this crap, or they go, holy cow, that is amazing. That is going to save me time.
Yeah.
And anybody in the technology industry, if you've been on a site and given, trade contractor, a super, a foresman, if you've had that moment with them, it's just like, oh my God, my job is doing it right. They are finally feeling like they can actually survive this job.
Very satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's been fantastic. So those have been the moments over the past 10 years. What about recently? What have you seen recently that has been starting to dive into those aha moments?
I think one of the things which is, again, a characteristic of we as a species is that of our five senses, visualization is number one, right? So what I saw and what I began preaching to my design professional colleagues about BIM was you can get a client to yes faster when they can visualize so much more fluidly, right? Because you can render out of these models so much better. And that yes will stick. That's the part that when you're a design professional, you truly understand. Because all of us went through the situation where something was approved and then it got rethought. Yeah. That vice president looked at it and wants to look at something else, No,
usually during construction.
Not just getting to yes, it's sticking. It's getting that final yes. It's pouring the foundations around that yes, right? Right. That was one of the beauties. And that's what happened with Navisworks. That's why Navisworks lit up the contracting community to get involved in this thing called BIM. What more can it do, man? Because you could see this stuff. Everybody could see it, right? And so that's this playing towards that visualization capability shows a true understanding of what it is that motivates and how you can actually get people to do something. When you can see it, you will tend to believe it. Right? Now you have to hope it's the truth, but it becomes an extremely powerful tool. And we have lots of data behind it to help to make it true. But still, if you can basically visualize that single source of truth, that is so immensely powerful to the human being. And this is why you're seeing these roll up dashboards, right? Give me one dashboard that shows me as an owner, like where 16 of my projects in this program are right now. Super powerful, right? All the information was always there, but it was painful to pull it together and people had to sit there and do it. Right now, you can start to draft it. I think the thing which is going to bring the owners more efficiently and effectively and perhaps permanently into the driver's seat with all this is going to be the digital twin. Because heretofore, every BIM study we do, we say, how often does the owner ask for a BIM model? Well, 30% of the time, maybe 40% of the time. And then what do they do with it? No idea. Then we ask owners, what are you doing with that BIM model? We have it. Long pause.
Yeah.
But, we can't open it anymore because we don't have that version of Revit or whatever it is, and it's like, now, right, with the growth of this idea of the digital twin, that becomes something. And again, that's just borrowed from every other big industry. Airplanes have been using the concept of digital twin forever because they need to know every single operation of every single little gear on that thing while it's in flight, dude, because you've got 350 lives at stake, sport. You better know, right? That's just, table stakes, lunch to them. Now we're sort of discovering it in this industry, but I think that's what that's going to do is it's sort of three trends we're seeing. One is it's giving owners a reason to care about data, right? Everybody loves to talk about data right now. Oh, data. Again, using that superintendent analogy, you walk up to a superintendent at 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Dude, you want some data? And up here in New York, but they tell you, hey, do this with your data.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. But now there's a reason for it. And there's a reason for clean, accurate, complete, and consistent data, right? Which technology can provide. If it's organized in that way from day one, it'll basically populate your digital twin for you with no extra lift. Having been in that world of trying to put the handover package together at the end of a job, along with the client, along with the contractor for the client. It's a heavy lift. It's never complete. It's horrible. For something to do that for you seamlessly in the background as you're going and build that digital twin. And then the owners got that basically to put into their portfolio of digital assets and manage their assets digitally. That's a beautiful thing. And we're getting closer and closer to getting there. The second thing that's happening as a result of that we're seeing is we used to do maybe one owner study every 3 years. We've now done 5 in the last 12 months. Everybody's looking at what that owner's saying and thinking and doing, right?
Yeah, it's like the safety movement, right, Steve? It's like we're seeing this too. I and Jacob, where am I going to go? What am I going to say? We've started saying, yeah. So, Steve, I'm going to introduce you to this. And since you're with Dodge, maybe I can get it to stick. I look at this as a data twin for the same reason as you call it a digital twin, because in Boeing, right? Boeing's got some other people, right? But it's their ecosystem, right? It's theirs. And since our ecosystem is so diverse, but then our buildings that when we're complete live inside of some other world, right? A smart city, hopefully someday, which was a big hype curve and is a big bottom out, and we'll get back. I've got this data twin because you said it right. It's this constant stream. But you hit 3 things separately that I'm just going to combine that I thought were awesome, because you said it's got to be organized and clean.
Yeah.
And complete.
Yes.
And the key to organize, clean, and complete is fully and cohesively implemented, which you said, software. It has to be purchased and implemented, not just in this job or that foreman.
Yeah.
And then finally, that's super. If you walk up and say, here's your data, they're going to throw you off. But if you walked up that morning and said, hey, listen, my data says that traffic's going to back up and the laydown of these materials is going to be late, but it actually says that I'm tracking the concrete truck and it's closer. We could probably do this, or, hey, better, I'm looking week out. What's your plan? Oh, then they're like, hey, buddy.
That's right.
Come on up and sit next to me and tell me some more of that.
Bring me some more of that data because it optimizes for me. Thank you.
Bring me something.
Bring me solutions.
Yes. I have a problem, or I don't know I have a problem. But I can have some visibility. And back to your senses, I had the experience of learning, and you might know Kurt Neubeck from Page Sutherland Page, and he introduced me to this whole idea of decision making, right? And all the facets and things that go into it, and the senses and the needs, because he said the same thing as you. I don't need yes. I need a yes that I can cash that check and go to my fab facility, order. Yes, I can act on, man. That is the difference. And if you set that up right, like you said, right? People, I pick up the phone, I call, I understand. Maybe I'm slacking or using some cool new communications technology that's real. I'm not emailing and just going, okay, I'll move on. Because, by the way, that's not a form of communication. That's documentation. That's what I can write an RFI off.
Broadcasting.
Broadcasting. But if I use some of these tools, then and I understand what people need, then I can use technology through the process to really be an accelerant, get to yes faster. And so I'm interested in what's driving the owner change that you started to articulate. Because we used to see them very little. 10 years ago when I started, we didn't talk much about owners. And then all of a sudden they started to come in more.
The thing which I saw that I'm now seeing a repeat of is BIM. Okay, because I spent all those years deep in the BIM space. And when GSA, followed by Department of Defense, decided that BIM could help them solve a very specific problem, not panacea, not change the world, not kumbaya, none of that. They had both of them had very real, tangible, painful problems. The GSA was their design excellence program, right? They would hire really high quality architectural firms to do the courthouses and to do the big, thing. Great idea. Thank you for doing it. Wonderful. But unfortunately, they didn't always pay attention to the program to the degree that they should have, because they really thought they were being hired to design a fabulous building, and they did design fabulous buildings, but then the judge would find out he had to walk 75 miles to get from his chambers to his courtroom. What happened to making that adjacency a high priority? Little things like that, which then again, the GSA client wasn't the end client. Right, that judge was the end client, and that GSA client would get his poor tail kicked all over that courthouse, right? And so it's how can we validate program for design excellence in the schematic design? And they did the people thing. They called together literally all the executives from the BIM companies at the time, sat them in one room together, and said, "Will you all commit to putting this into your programs? If you do, we will mandate the use of BIM on every design excellence project." They all said, "Yes, we will." The GSA did. And they admitted openly, they said, "Look, we're not requiring you to do it any more than just schematic design. Use BIM for schematic design. But we're hoping that once they start, they keep rolling." And they did. And the Department of Defense said, "We have a similar problem." Mm-hmm. And they ended up just doing it with Bentley, but they have these prototypes for buildings, barracks, right? I mean, don't reinvent the wheel. Please don't reinvent the damn wheel, okay? Mm-mm. These things work for us. There's a reason they work for us, because they support everything that we do that way in those buildings. But they give it to an architect, and they wouldn't really get that building on that particular site, on that particular base. But Bentley said, hey, if you just basically build these as whole standalone things in a model and just hand them the model and say, just go site adapt this, right? Make sure it fits to Mother Earth, and then don't touch it above grade, all right? Yep. Voila, problem solved. So bam, they banned it, and the Air Force got involved, and it began to grow from there, right? And I'm thinking, at least, that I'm seeing that the digital twin has that capability to, again, give a reason to an owner that's very tangible and understandable that they would then begin to mandate it. And the two other things I'm beginning to see that are flowing out of that now, that's showing up very loud and clear in the data that never did before, are we are developing and implementing digital practice and process standards for the contractor when they show up on a job. It's in their contract. It's not a standalone document. It's not an idea. It's not a phone call. It's in your damn contract, right? And every trade contractor you work with then better be feeding you their information digitally. Otherwise, you're going to be having people sitting in a back room doing double data entry all day long, buddy. So you better be smart about who you're hiring, which encourages the trades to get more digital and all of that, right? And the third thing that we're seeing, which may be the most disturbing to contractors, is with the growth of these PMIS systems, the project management information systems that started with eBuilder like 15 years ago. McGraw-Hill was one of the first investors in that, and now has spawned Kahua and Project Mates and a whole slew of others. Is that when we survey those guys, they're beginning to say, yes, you will be digital and you will use my system. Thank you. I don't care what else you got running in your shop. Here's your login. Here's your password. Give it to everybody on your team. You're running the whole project through my system. That one is beginning to go like this in terms of the frequency. Once they get involved, because the data is like this in terms of the quality, or the findings are like this in terms of the quality of data that they get. And we track it across the four things I talked about: the accuracy, the timeliness, the completeness, and the consistency from project to project to project to project, which allows them to do cross-project analysis. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Don't get
sunshine
better.
And rainbows.
No. Keep stumbling every time. That's way better for all of us who write change orders. But that's something that people aren't quite prepared for. No. Is that they put a lot of investment into, and it's the other crazy thing that we see, because we do tons of contractor studies in both trades and GCs in terms of what tech they're using, right? How much of it is homegrown? Eddie and Bobby built this stuff back when, there wasn't anything else. Okay. Or the other stuff was, you're paying for that. I can build that thing.
This is the cool thing now coming up in a lot of what we're going to be seeing in future construction. And it's the idea that the owner is finally stating a requirement for their own good. And while the rest of the industry is going to learn how to be adaptive, they're going to learn that, hey, we spent so much money on this program, but we might not be able to use it. It's also going to make the actual technology companies become more adaptive too.
Yes.
Because when the big GC says, I'm still using Procore, and the owner's like, well, you have to use eBuilder. Well, that GC is going to say, hey, Procore, how do I get that information into my system too?
Right.
I need it. I pay so much per year. I need that information as well, because we do track ours. We do track everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think the owners are doing it out of necessity now. I think they're seeing a lot of data that comes through, and now they're being held accountable to their clients, right? So, hey, why is this going on overruns of cost? Why is this going on overruns of schedule? And a lot of times before it was like, well, we couldn't do anything about it. Now it's, that's not an excuse anymore. Why aren't we doing something about it? Why aren't we requiring them to be doing this? And then also, I think one thing to go back to, you said visualization. Out of our 5 senses, visualization is number 1. And I love that, because I think that's where the digital twin catches on for building maintenance.
Yes.
Building operation and maintenance is a Excel sheet day job that they have tracked for years. And if you're not a technician, it is hard as hell to read that Excel sheet and understand what's going on in it. But visualization, if you're just coming into the company, you're managing a building, that's a lot easier to understand where that piece of equipment is, or what that piece of equipment is called, and how I can find it. And it's because a visualization aspect is starting to come into there and really be sold to these management companies, these operators.
It's also going to raise the value of the asset. We saw that happen with green buildings, and we have documentation of it in our global green studies, is that buildings that have certain sustainability factors to them actually have a higher resale value. I think if you, among that whole world that swaps and trades commercial properties like baseball cards, if you were able to buy assets in which you could not only operate them digitally, but could see everything that ever happened, every nut that got turned and every pipe that got repaired all the way through its history, that's so much better than buying something where, God, I wonder what condition this thing really is in, and what's about to explode on me that I have no idea, and they're not telling me, right? Now I see everything. That's going to actually make it so you would pay a little bit more for that, right? Because it's reducing uncertainty. Anything anybody can do to reduce uncertainty anywhere through this entire value chain is going to be where the money is.
Yeah, back to your beginning thought, right? De-risking. It's de-risk,
Yes.
de-risk. And I know we don't do a ton of plugs, but you said it, Jacob, Procore to eBuilder. There's your avocado. The reason being is, look, that's what I think this is going to build is, right, this secondary environment. We're already seeing it of data connectors, because we're all not going to be Boeing, right? We tried the Katera thing. It didn't work. We're going to be a more integrated group for sure, but we're going to stay specialized because I think that's great for us. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have to integrate the data. But groups like Avocado and others that are coming out, Rivet, that was just purchased by Trimble, does a lot of this. Like, this is great, but they need clean, consistent, organized data, because I can't take what I get from Procore and put it into your Excel spreadsheet very effectively, or vice versa. So, those day jobs, that change. And then to your point, Steve, ESG, and we're seeing this in the United Kingdom already, is really changing how that asset is valued going forward. See, in the United States, we're still behind on this one. We still flip and we buy up properties and we buy up unknown risk and we try to run around and figure it out. But ultimately, you're buying a Corvette with a Fiat engine in it. Sorry, Fiat. Or
I used to own one. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Fix it again, Tony.
So I think honestly, you're onto something that's going to force the need and the appetite for owners on the digital transformation.
It gives structure to all of this. This has been, we get no help from the government on this at all in this country. UK at least has centralized government functions around the mandating of BIM, and they spent 2 years letting people get educated about it before they began to mandate it. They did it in a more rational way. There's no help at all in this. It's all been street level revolution the whole way, one at a time. A bunch of pirates out there swashbuckling their way through this stuff. And I see that this may ultimately be, this idea of the digital twin may ultimately be what gives structure to everything all the way back upstream. The other players who need to get involved, and we have 5,000 of them as customers, are the building product manufacturers, right? Because replacement is a huge business for them, right? So don't they want to know the condition of every roof out there? Of course they do. That data will exist now. Right? There's all kinds of interesting things which will change when we have, as much as possible, a true virtual version of our existing built environment that's feeding real-time operating information out. It's going to also put a lot of manufacturers under the microscope because they said, this is a 20-year roof. Yeah, well, guess what? It's lasting 12 in the best conditions. Oh, oops. Because again, who's to say? Until you have the data. And then when you have the data, you can't hide. Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. I was on a call a little while back with the Construction Progress Coalition on design handoff and looking at the data required from building product manufacturers and the way to harmonize that data to understand it. Because in the future, building product manufacturer doesn't know the location of where I'm going to install it. Right. But I need that in the end as part of that digital data twin to hand over so that when I want to say reorder a replacement, I know how many I need, where they are. And, oh yeah, by the way, like you said, this was going to last 12 years. No, that's not the case. Let's look at something a little bit more disposable. These lights are supposed to last 10 years. Well, they're not. And
but also, you mentioned the way it's installed could be important too, because what you'll now have data on, in these 750 ways that it was installed that way, it's actually pretty successful. In these 7 other ways that it's been installed several hundred times each, it has failed for these reasons for that time. Right? It's all best practices. It's
that's
the
great
ability
stuff.
to crowdsource best practices. And then also when you go to replace it, hey, do I have to replace it with this one? What other ones are out there? I mean, you can do that now as a consumer with pretty much anything in your life, right? You can get reviews out the yin yang on things that you should consider when you're going to get something, right? That's going to be available now for both first purchase and replacement purchase for any of these building products and materials because we finally have the data.
Yeah. So I actually, I see an opportunity to this whole transparency for the manufacturers. And while it could really, literally you could be hurt by this and realize that what you have promised is not there. You could also start taking it and offering the trust factor back to your clients and your building owners. So something like Train or air handling unit on top of a building is consistently monitored, but there's also things like vibration metrics and, how hot it's running, the temperature it's running at, even RPMs inside of some type of motor in there, it tracks it. So now all these smart buildings are starting to give transparency to those metrics and realizing, oh crap, you lied. I was running it correctly and it died. But they're also going to start finding ways to say, hey, there is an issue in this machine before you actually had the issue show up and it had to be shut down. And manufacturers could literally take that and say, hey, I'm going to provide you the data of how it should be running. And if these, flags get hit, I can show you what flags are because I've collected all my data from, whether it's installed in New Mexico or in Maine or in California. I'm collecting that data and showing you, hey, if event A happens and event B happens, you need to go maintain it. And that's just so you don't have the problem of it shutting down on you. And then you're calling us saying, what the hell?
Yeah, right. All right, you sold us a piece of junk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also what maintenance did or didn't happen to it. Because we used to, in architecture, we did a lot of higher ed, and I could sit down with a higher ed prospect and I could tell him several things that were true about his campus, having never set foot on it before. I said, one of them is you have millions of dollars of deferred maintenance, don't you? Well, yeah, we do. Don't feel bad. I'm telling you, every college out there does, right? And that's one of the flaws with LEED, for instance, is that, yes, it was designed to perform this way, but if you don't maintain it, ain't going to perform that way, right? And so now with tracking all the FM activities as well as all of its moment-to-moment operating characteristics of any of these kinds of pieces of equipment, along with how it was installed and what conditions it was installed, along with who installed it. What kind of track record do you have as a mechanical contractor? Let's look at your track record. How many of your things have been above the norm? Because there'll be norms now, right? There'll be baselines. How many of your installations are above baseline? Hey, we're running as a 7. I want to hire you. I'm running at a -4. You ain't working on my job. Things like this that just were impossible before because we're so fragmented. Suddenly, this will just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super powerful, and we can tell them, in those schools, sometimes your HVAC is running a lot more than it should, not because of the HVAC, but because there's some other environmental issue that you need to go adjust. And then, wow, the asset is more efficient, can be maintained better, and a single device could tell you that. So you guys are doing a lot of studies, you got a lot out there. What can people expect coming up from you? Anything hot off the presses or that you think people should go check out?
We are continuing to do owner studies. We've got another one that's going to be coming out shortly, and it does a little bit of an interesting different look, which is internally at the owner organization, to what degree they're actually supporting once they get technology. What are they doing to help optimize it? Do they even know what would help optimize it? And so we take their performance and then we look at different ways that they're organizing their expertise. For instance, like, are you centralizing it with a few people who know how to use like the PMIS and they support everybody? Or does every operating group have at least one person? Or is it unstructured? It's just, I think Charlie knows how to use it. I think Alice went through the training, but I don't know if she really knows how to use it. She hadn't touched it in 6 months. And, and then, all right, now how does that relate to what they're telling us about their performance and their satisfaction, right? And the benefits that they're getting. Oh, look at that. The more you actually intentionally do things in this way, hey, wow, look at that, better results. And the same thing with the idea of when you initially began, what was your plan? Did you have a plan? Did you say, we are going to digitize these processes over this period of time? Or did you just get it and open the box and let's see what happens, and then look at the differences in results? Striking difference there. If you actually have some intent, right, and you actually structure yourself to actually distribute your, either centralize or make sure that every group at least has one good one. Oh my, are your results better? Wow. It's off the charts. It's like,
So KPIs instead of wind test. Oh, yes, it's windy. Well, that's because my finger's by the fan, people.
Yeah.
Hey, come on now.
I was heavily involved with the BIM forum back in the days when the BIM execution plan was just being got off the ground. And so we started putting in our surveys questions about how is it that you go about, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, asking for BIM? And largely the answer was we kind of erased CAD and stuck in the letters BIM and just let's see what happens.
We did a control F, find and replace. We replaced CAD with BIM, and we're off and running,
see
baby.
what they bring us. Let's see what the architects tell us. We'll learn by doing that way. And so the BIM execution plan brought, again, structure. Oh, you mean now we have a plan for who will model what to what level of LOD, right? And have it for who to look at when. And there's boom. So this is kind of, again, analogous to this idea of the digital twin as being, all right, Oz at the end of the yellow brick road is going to pull everybody in now in a much more structured way along that yellow brick road, and they'll know how to work with each other, right? So I think this is all a very, very positive, powerful future step for us.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think owners getting involved and then actually understanding and taking that lens is going to help us. And then they're acumen will push down. So,
yeah, and our
man,
ability to prove things like the asset value of digital twin buildings versus those that are still just lumps of dirt and brick, right?
In a couple years,
then people begin to say, "Do this." Boom! It comes from the senior vice president level down. Do this.
But to your earlier point, do this because it makes my facility better operate. It makes my asset a more valuable asset, and it de-risks the operation, which Jacob will love because he loves that operations. It'll de-risk it. So, hey, we could go on forever, but I know you're going to have a lot to say about the news, and we really need to wrap it up and talk about the construction technology news of the week. All right, Jacob, what you got?
All right. So going back to my favorite source of construction technology is Construction Dive. Not too much of an article, just a little dive brief, but they actually talk about Finnish manufacturer plans $750 million Georgia modular building factory. So great. I love it. New construction, new factory. The thing I brought this in for is the company's called Admaris, and they're from Finland, but I'm impressed. And you can tell that with the whole conversation here, BIM is their baseline for this whole modular manufacturing process. It's a big building that they're doing, and they're actually very heavily invested in the residential and hospitality. But if you go into it, they have the link to their press release, and then you can go into their website, and it's quite incredible of what they're trying to do with modular housing. And they do it for all levels. So single family all the way up to townhomes, multifamily. Mm-hmm. But they've looked at it from a mass production standpoint and produced it here. So I'm interested as we've seen the articles, we've seen 3D printing of houses. We all know there's a housing crisis. We all know that this is needed. Who is going to be that successful, basically tipping point of a company to actually supply it, to actually put it as a, something that's actually usable, but it's also cost effective, because that's the biggest thing right now. You can't go build mass housing at a high cost. So,
nope. No, I think this is unique, Jacob. I think you hit on something very interesting. We've seen a couple of modular failures recently, and we've seen the ebbs and flows, but this is a group that's had success in other places. It's success at scale. And I honestly think for a brief, this is a real put construction companies in the US and construction companies more on notice, because the growth in multifamily is huge, but the risk and uncertainty that exists in that market is at an all-time high. And I had talked to a couple of construction companies along the way that were thinking about things like this, because they said somebody's going to come do it. Well, your competitor is here, and they're very digitally driven. They're extremely advanced, and they have had success. And to me, that's the key. They've had success before. So, man, this is cool. Steve, you've got to be interested in the push for modular and the push for these types of changes.
Yeah, we've done 4 studies so far, just looking at prefab and modular, which are different. They have different drivers. They're done by different people for different reasons, but we put them in the same reports. So we just treat them as different chapters of it. But 2 of the things which come to mind when I hear this, one is that a lot of the resistance that we encounter when we do these studies is the fact that there is no such thing as a national building code. Every building code's down to practically the zip code out there, and that you face all kinds of issues with that. The study that we're involved in right now on this topic, interestingly, is coming from the Department of Energy. They've hired us to do a study, and it has a specific focus to it because they love the energy efficiency of modular facilities, but they get pushback from labor unions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they have nothing to go back with. All the labor unions say is, you're taking jobs away from me on my job site, right? And they don't have anything to come back with, so they need us to go give them ammo to come back with, to say, well, perhaps the quantity of human beings is less, but the quality of them and the training required and the skill level and the pay level is actually, whether it's equivalent or near so or whatever. And here's the jobs that are happening inside factories, such as Jacob's talking about, right? So it's not as if net employment is being impacted. It may even be positively in terms of the overall wage investment, right? And the safety is better, right? And the quality is better, right? And the reliable timeliness is better, right? And so do the positives outweigh yes, I get it, the negatives, right? But they have no ammo. So they have us going out right now and collecting that ammo for them and looking. So we're talking to not only contractors, but manufacturers to find out, all right, what is the impact when modular is being used? How many fewer people, what kinds of people aren't on the site anymore? What kind of people are on the site? What are the pay levels? And then to the manufacturers, who are you using in your factories? What are the pay levels? What are the quantities? All right, and try and come up with some sort of a baseline for what that net impact is going to be on the labor market. Because it's still undisputable that there aren't enough human beings to meet the demand. That's not going away. Right. And so automation and offsite are the two things which we see in our research are going to, and they're pretty obvious when you think about it, going to have the most positive impact. But getting them there is not a matter of saying, what a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've done a lot of work in that world with the unions, and they're pushing forward to it. They are really trying to get over those hurdles and actively seeing it, because they actively see the safety increase. They actually see the quality of the work they do go up. So they're seeing it, and it's good to see you go get the data to help, because I think in the end, the benefits far outweigh what are just short-term obstacles, right? I think the unions have showed over time, and the signatories have showed over time, that they can adapt and adjust and actually upskill faster. So, or upskill as fast as we need. Faster is a relative term. So
sure. Yeah. But unfortunately, things become political, as so many other things do, right? So that just adds a layer of complexity to the whole discussion.
It's true. As somebody that worked in South Florida in the middle of the summer, helping build roofs and roofing, if you were to ask me, would you rather build a roof on a site or in a factory? I would most likely say factory. So
most likely, yeah.
All right, next up, and this is just a fun one for everybody. I feel like I'm back in MTV in the 1995. Elon Musk has accepted. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg say they're ready for a cage fight, and all in all, this just makes me feel like claymation and celebrity death match is about to happen. This is amazing. Not to mention that these are two billionaires that are literally UFC. Dana White is like, I have it on hand. Let's go do it.
I've got a venue. Conor McGregor is going to come on.
He's going to rep it.
He's going to they should bring him into Ultimate Fighter. McGregor and somebody else are training right now. Be a great place for him.
They should just beat each other with bags of money.
Compete for a bag of money. Oh man, that is too funny. And hey, but look, Zuckerberg's actually a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist now, BJJ, and he won a tournament recently. Yeah. So hey, who knows, man? Zuck, you might. Elon, I don't know that you want to poke that bear necessarily.
This is great. Elon said he was the walrus. He's got a move called the walrus, where I just lie on top of my opponent.
Rope-a-dope.
There we go.
You know what's going to happen, man. They're just going to go both charge each other with creating an AI to go fight for them, and they'll just fight their AI avatars in the ring, and it'll be virtual, right?
Yeah, it'll be just another video game.
Yep. Well, thanks for the levity, buddy. I am going to take over with the next news, and this is a good one. And I always like to go back to my buddy James Peace, because he sends me some things in his blog post. So if you're not subscribed, it's a cool one. He's Lean IPD. This is a blog on the 5 benefits of prefabrication IPD project owners should know about. It is really, really cool because it kind of lays out graphically and with a high level on some of the benefits. It's a controlled environment, labor efficiency, increased coordination and constructability, schedule acceleration, automation and robotics, right? Those are kind of things we were already talking about in the modular piece. Some of the things that he does though with graphing for me on schedule acceleration when it comes to modular and offsite gets misunderstood. The lead time is longer because you need to make that decision and you need to have time in the factory. The time on site is shorter. And so you have to insert that planning and scheduling earlier and get that decision made, like we talked about with Steve earlier, in order to see the schedule impacts happen. So this is a mind shift. It doesn't just happen on its own. You need to have designers and construction and owners on the same page with the trades getting this stuff done ahead of time. That's why it really leans itself to IPD and IFOA projects, because everybody's at the table earlier. If you're doing things in the current fashion, you're actually going to get a worse result. It doesn't work. So it's a paradigm shift. And there's a lot that it facilitates. And I think automation and robotics at the end is where, if we do the first 4 things correctly, we can put an accelerant on it. So Jacob, I'm interested, man. You're all about that world.
Yeah, this is big. And I think Steve hit on it early in this podcast, that whoever you are as a designer or contractor, your client is the one making decisions, but they have a client also, whether it's an end user, whether it's a VP above them, that then has to approve it as well. This idea of shortening the project duration is set on getting that additional stakeholder, that one more touch, approving it, because this is great. This is awesome, but there is no ability to change down the line. Your costs, if you go into this modular approach, prefab approach, your costs become heftier when you make the change as you're going through construction. And it's because you plan so much that this is going to be really efficient. Well, when you remove the efficiency, you're kind of screwing yourself. So it's that paradigm shift. I want to know, what our owner is going to be okay signing off on a design in May and not be able to come back in July and say, well, we want to, they decided they wanted a closet instead. It's amazing, because that is going to be the case of, hey, we're going to have to push back and say, we can't. It's in production. Like, you don't get to order a BMW and then in the middle of production say, kind of wanted white, So do you think owners are going to be able to do that?
I think it's going to take us facilitating it when it comes to visualizations. To Steve's point before is, and I'll go to our previous Charlie Dunn, his whole job at DPR is project storyteller. And, his whole mission is, I take teams into the future, find the problems that exist. And I would add on that he also finds the opportunities that can be articulated and brings it back to today and through great technology. And it's a layer of Bentley systems and modeling and other tools that can show the power and show the owner. And I think that's what's always been missing. Steve, you said it. It was a trust me. And then I say, trust me. And here's a spreadsheet and a JPEG and maybe a spec detail if you're lucky. I can't go on that, Jacob. I just can't. And I think in the end, the ability to understand the materials and see them beforehand, see the finished products-ish before they happen, and understand that I'm not walking down that hallway, like you said, Steve. If I can jump in and go, this is great till I leave my chambers, and then I got a 6-mile walk every time, and I only have 10 minutes between, not a good idea. I can mitigate that risk and articulate it and make the adjustments in that planning phase. And then I do think these decisions can stick. Now, I'll put on top of it, Jacob, that we don't really do this with cars, but like, how much better do you feel about your Amazon purchases when you purchase them and then you can track them instantly. And so you know where they are. So one of the things is owners are used to walking onto a job site and seeing everything being built. And when you build it off site, they walk on, they don't see anything happening. And an unbusy job site to them is not productive. That's wrong. But we've seen tools that can, through computer vision, through material tracking, through all of these advanced technologies, can show them the progress and give them that tangible feel that something's being done. And I think it'll be the culmination of that coming together, Amazon-ish, where I say, hey, I ordered that multi-trade rack and okay, it's gone through these layers of fabrication and here's where it is. And down to the materials are ordered and they're delivered to the facility. The facility's on track. I can literally track it through. Here's my whip right now and give that data back like Steve talked about. And dang, then I can make a difference.
Yep, I agree.
I'm always looking for the real tangible reason for cool technology. And this one that you've hit on, where you absolutely have to say yes and pour cement on it many, many, many months before you actually see the final thing, could be that happy application for virtual reality, for VR. Because it's one thing to sit and look at something on a screen. It's something else to be able to put the housewife in that and have her walk around and open every closet, look at every shelf and make sure that every hook is actually exactly where she's going to want it ad nauseum, right, on her own time until midnight if she wants to, because it's all virtual, until she says, absolutely, yes, this is what I want. Boom, then it's done, right? So that could be a really, really good VR application. Yeah,
I think there'll be a number of those. My last one's quick and dirty and nerdy. So a new paper from IBM, and this is research.ibm.com. A new paper from IBM and UC Berkeley shows a path toward useful quantum computing. This one's crazy nerdy. So a useful application for 127 qubit quantum processors with error mitigation. This was way crazy because 100 qubit, I remember when we talked about that being a barrier we wouldn't see for 20, 30 years, and IBM and Quantum Eagle, they said, nope, we're going to pass it. And they did. And the interesting part is the researchers are seeing from Berkeley and IBM together that they're being able to run increasingly complex physical simulations without the errors that they expected that they would see, which means they're going to and they're doing this and comparing it against the current old way of doing it and making sure that the computational paradigms work. These things work. What the heck does that mean to people listening except my super nerds? It means that if we continue on the path that we're on, eventually we will have the computers that have the ability to real-time process information in such ways to almost instantly know what's going on. Almost instantly, like we talked about earlier, it's one thing to show up with hey, here's data to a super. And now we can say, hey, we think this is going to happen. And that's even more powerful. And then eventually with these kinds of models, we're going to see incredible amounts of information come that's going to, operate an entire city, not just a job site. So it's crazy. And I just wanted to get nerdy. So if you're nerdy, click the link so you can see that there's another article on the quantum breaks the 100 qubit processor barrier, which was crazy. So just go get your nerd on. Jacob, you getting your nerd on?
I love it. I love every bit of it. This is amazing. And the fact that there's these stories out there about Moore's Law, right? And how we were getting to these points of how it's accelerating. And I think there's 3 times now that scientists have stated Moore's Law is coming to an end. We can't get smaller. We can't do it any minute. And then there's somebody that finds a new material or a new way to do it. And boom, we're right back on it. I mean, there's no way for even us just to wrap our head around what this even means. There is a very small percentage of the world that understands what this article actually means. This is really cool for us to nerd out on, but it's incredible because there's so much to this as going forward to the idea of just like you said, real time. I mean, what happens?
No lag. That's to bring it back down to that superintendent, it's like no lag. You're not getting 2 week ago information anymore. What you're getting is earned value in real time for every trade on your site. You could pay them by the hour if you had to.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's going to come. It's going to be the 2 week ahead is the crazy part. It's quantum's going to allow us to be 2 weeks, a month, a year ahead. And it's just fun to dork out on. Well, that is the news. That is the show. That is the day. Thanks, Steve, for popping in this morning and being on the show with us.
My pleasure, guys.
Well, we're looking forward to more of those reports, and we'll have a few links of them into the show notes, and we'll probably release a few the week that the episode comes out. Jacob, as always, great to see you, my friend.
Absolutely, Jeff. I'll see you next time. Same bat time.
Same bat channel, buddy. Thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Steve Jones. To read all our news stories, learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.